First Contact and Technological Disparity. The massive Zorlaxian battlecruiser hung in the inky blackness of space, its sleek obsidian hull gleaming with intricate bioluminescent circuitry. Captain Vrextal stood on the command deck, his four-armed frame rigid with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Humanity was an enigma, a species that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere in the galactic community, defying every known protocol of technological progression. The communication screen flickered to life, revealing Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez from the Earth Interstellar Exploration vessel Horizon. His appearance was deceptively casual, dark hair slightly disheveled, a small scar above his right eyebrow, and an expression that seemed more amused than intimidated by the enormous alien vessel surrounding his relatively tiny human ship. Zorlaxian Command, this is Lieutenant Rodriguez of the Earth Exploration Fleet, he spoke, his voice clear and steady. We've received your transmission about the collaborative research mission. Vrextal's secondary nerve cluster twitched, a gesture of skepticism among his species. The humans had been invited to participate in a joint technological assessment of a critical deep space research station, but everyone knew it was more of a test than a genuine collaboration. The Zorlaxian Confederation had spent centuries perfecting their technological systems, developing computational matrices that could process information at speeds unimaginable to most sentient species. Humans, by contrast, were considered technological infants. Their ships were bulky, their computational systems primitive, their understanding of quantum mechanics rudimentary at best. This mission was designed to demonstrate the vast technological superiority of the Zorlaxian civilization. Acknowledged, Earth vessel, Vrextal responded, his translator rendering his complex linguistic clicks into smooth human language. Prepare for standard docking protocols. Our technical assessment team is ready to supervise your participation. The word supervise carried a condescending undertone that would have been lost on less perceptive species. But Marcus Rodriguez seemed to catch it, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. The research station was a marvel of engineering, a massive spherical structure suspended in the gravitational nexus of three small neutron stars. Its external shell was composed of adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental demands. Zorlaxian engineers had spent decades developing its complex systems, integrating quantum computing with biological neural networks in ways no other civilization had achieved. As the human and Zorlaxian teams assembled in the central research hub, the contrast was stark. Zorlaxian technicians moved with calculated precision, their multiple appendages manipulating holographic interfaces with hypnotic grace. Their bodies were a blend of organic technology, cybernetic implants seamlessly integrated into their biological structure, allowing them near-instantaneous computational abilities. The human team, by comparison, looked almost comically simple. Marcus Rodriguez stood with two other human specialists, Dr. Imani Okeke, a systems engineer with an infectious laugh, and technician Raj Patel, whose hands moved with a craftsman's deliberate care. They carried what seemed like laughably basic tablet computers and wore standard-issue environmental suits that looked primitive next to the Zorlaxians' adaptive bioarmor. Chief Researcher Krelnax, a senior Zorlaxian scientist with over 2 centuries of technological experience, approached the human team with an air of academic condescension. "We will be monitoring your contributions closely," he stated, his translator rendering the words with a clinical detachment. The computational challenges of this research station require precision beyond typical biological limitations. Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Imani and Raj. Their eyes communicated something the Zorlaxians couldn't comprehend, a mix of quiet confidence and barely contained amusement. Little did the Zorlaxian team know that this mission would become a turning point in interstellar relations, a moment that would challenge everything they understood about technological capability, problem-solving, and the true nature of intelligence. The research station's central chamber hummed with an electric tension. Quantum data streams cascaded across holographic displays, creating a mesmerizing dance of light and information that seemed to pulse with an almost living quality. The Zorlaxian team had been working on a critical problem for months, a quantum entanglement disruption that was threatening the stability of an entire sector's communication network. Chief researcher Krelnax pointed to a complex three-dimensional schematic that looked like an intricate crystalline structure crossed with a neural network. This quantum resonance anomaly has defied our most advanced computational models, he explained, his voice a mixture of professional frustration and barely concealed pride. We have deployed our most sophisticated quantum algorithms, and yet the solution remains elusive. Marcus Rodriguez leaned forward, studying the display with an intensity that made the Zorlaxian technicians uncomfortable. Dr. Imani Okeke stood beside him, her dark eyes scanning the data with a combination of curiosity and analytical precision. "May I?" Marcus asked, gesturing to a secondary interface terminal. Krelnax hesitated. Allowing a human to directly interact with their most advanced research systems was against every protocol. But the terms of their collaborative mission required a certain level of access. With a dismissive wave of his upper appendage, he granted permission. What happened next would become a legendary moment in interstellar scientific circles. Marcus's fingers moved across the interface with a speed and intuition that seemed almost impossible. He wasn't using the complex multidimensional input methods favored by the Zorlaxians. Instead, he was using a combination of direct input and what could only be described as creative problem-solving. Raj Patel joined him, bringing with him a portable computing device that looked primitive compared to the station's advanced systems. To the Zorlaxian observers, it seemed laughable, like bringing a child's abacus to a quantum computing conference. "We're going to approach this differently," Marcus muttered, more to himself and his team than to their alien counterparts. The Zorlaxian technicians watched in a mixture of curiosity and barely contained derision. Their quantum models had been developed over decades, refined by the most advanced artificial intelligence systems in the known galaxy. These humans, with their rudimentary understanding and basic computing tools, couldn't possibly comprehend the complexity of the problem. But Marcus and his team saw the quantum disruption differently. Where the Zorlaxians saw a complex mathematical problem to be solved through pure computational power, the humans saw a system, a living, dynamic network with inherent patterns and potential weaknesses. Imani began sketching something on a basic tablet, a seemingly random collection of lines and symbols that looked more like an artist's abstract drawing than a scientific diagram. Raj connected his portable device to the station's systems, running what appeared to be a series of simple, almost primitive diagnostic routines. Krelnax couldn't contain his skepticism any longer. "Your methods are completely ineffective," he proclaimed. "We have already determined that traditional computational approaches are insufficient. Our quantum AI has been working on this problem for solar cycles." Marcus looked up, a slight smile playing on his lips. "Sometimes," he said, "the solution isn't about more complex calculations. It's about understanding the fundamental nature of the problem." The station's lead engineer, a veteran Zorlaxian named Zwexnr, moved closer to observe. The humans were doing something unprecedented. They were treating the quantum disruption like a living system, mapping its behavior rather than trying to mathematically suppress it. Lines of code began to flow on Marcus's terminal, not the hyperdimensional, multi-layered code of Zorlaxian systems, but something more direct, more organic. It was as if he was speaking to the system, coaxing out its secrets rather than trying to force a solution. Hours passed. The Zorlaxian team grew increasingly agitated. Their most advanced monitoring systems showed no significant progress, yet the human team worked with an almost casual determination that was both infuriating and intriguing. As the station's artificial day cycle began to shift, something unexpected started to happen. The quantum disruption, which had remained stubbornly resistant to months of Zorlaxian computational efforts, began to show signs of destabilization. Krelnax couldn't believe his sensory inputs. The humans were doing something that should have been impossible. The impossible mission was about to prove just how limited the Zorlaxians' understanding of problem-solving truly was. The research station trembled slightly, a phenomenon that sent immediate panic through the Zorlaxian control team. Quantum systems this sensitive weren't supposed to react physically to computational processes. Yet, something unprecedented was happening. Zwexnr, the lead station engineer, frantically checked multiple monitoring systems. "Quantum resonance is shifting," he announced, his normally calm voice tinged with a mix of confusion and growing alarm. "But that's not possible." Marcus Rodriguez continued his work, seemingly unperturbed by the station's subtle vibrations. Dr. Imani Okeke had moved to a secondary terminal, her fingers dancing across the interface with a rhythm that seemed more intuitive than calculated. Raj Patel stood nearby, holding what appeared to be a modified diagnostic tool that looked more like a jury-rigged collection of components than a sophisticated piece of scientific equipment. "We're not fighting the system," Marcus explained, catching Krelnax's bewildered stare. "We're working with it. Think of it like negotiating with a living network instead of trying to force it into submission." The Zorlaxian researchers exchanged glances. Their entire scientific methodology was based on absolute control, precise mathematical models, and computational domination. The human approach seemed almost mystical, as if they were communicating with the quantum network rather than analyzing it. Krelnax approached the human team, his multiple sensory appendages twitching with a combination of frustration and unprecedented curiosity. "Explain your methodology," he demanded, dropping all pretense of professional courtesy. Imani looked up, her eyes sparkling with the joy of scientific discovery. "We're treating this quantum disruption like an ecosystem," she explained. "Instead of trying to suppress or eliminate the anomaly, we're creating pathways for it to naturally redistribute its energy." It was a concept entirely foreign to Zorlaxian scientific thinking. Their approach had always been about control, about forcing systems into predetermined mathematical models. The humans were suggesting something radical, that sometimes the most effective solution was to understand and guide, rather than to dominate. Raj pulled up a series of visualizations that looked more like abstract art than scientific data. Swirling patterns of energy danced across the screen, showing how the quantum disruption was slowly being redirected rather than forcibly contained. The station's quantum core began to stabilize in ways that defied the Zorlaxian team's understanding. What had been a critical failure threatening an entire sector's communication network was now showing signs of not just repair, but fundamental transformation. "We're not just fixing the problem," Marcus explained, "we're helping the system find its natural balance." Zwexnr couldn't contain his professional curiosity any longer. "But how?" he asked, his translator rendering his complex linguistic clicks into a tone of genuine bewilderment. "Our most advanced quantum AI systems have been unable to generate even a fraction of the progress you've achieved in mere hours." The human team exchanged knowing glances. It wasn't about superior technology. It was about a fundamentally different approach to problem solving, one that valued adaptability, creativity, and understanding over pure computational power. As the quantum disruption continued to stabilize, the Zorlaxian researchers witnessed something that would challenge their entire understanding of technological innovation. The humans weren't just solving a problem, they were demonstrating a form of technological intuition that seemed to transcend traditional scientific boundaries. Krelnax realized with a growing sense of professional humility that they were experiencing something unprecedented. The humans weren't just participants in this research mission, they were rewriting the fundamental rules of technological problem solving. The impossible was becoming possible, and the Zorlaxian scientific community was about to have its most fundamental assumptions challenged in ways they could never have anticipated. The true nature of human capability was revealing itself, one quantum fluctuation at a time. The research station's central chamber had transformed from a site of technological tension to a crucible of unprecedented scientific discovery. What had begun as a routine collaborative mission had evolved into something far more profound, a moment that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Krelnax watched in stunned silence as the human team continued their unorthodox approach to solving the quantum disruption. The station's primary systems, which had been on the brink of catastrophic failure, now pulsed with a stability that seemed almost organic. "We're not just solving the immediate problem," Marcus explained to the increasingly captivated Zorlaxian researchers. "We're creating an adaptive framework that can self-regulate." Imani moved to a holographic display, her fingers tracing complex patterns that seemed to breathe with their own internal logic. "Traditional computational approaches treat systems as static," she said. "But quantum networks are living, dynamic entities. They need room to adapt, to find their own balance." Raj Patel had connected his seemingly primitive diagnostic device to the station's main quantum core. To the Zorlaxian engineers, it looked like attaching a bicycle pump to a sophisticated spacecraft engine. Yet, with each passing moment, the quantum disruption continued to stabilize. Zwexner, the lead station engineer, couldn't contain his professional curiosity any longer. "Your methods defy everything in our computational databases," he stated, a mixture of frustration and genuine admiration coloring his words. "We've spent decades developing quantum stabilization protocols, and you're solving the problem with what appears to be scientific intuition." Marcus smiled, a gesture that somehow managed to be both reassuring and slightly mischievous. "Sometimes," he replied, "the most complex problems require the most simple approach. We're not trying to overpower the system. We're helping it find its natural state of equilibrium." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. The quantum disruption, which had been a critical threat to an entire sector's communication network, began to not just stabilize, but to self-optimize. Patterns emerged that the Zorlaxian researchers had never conceived possible, a kind of quantum resilience that seemed to learn and adapt in real time. Krelnax accessed the primary monitoring systems, his sensory appendages trembling with a combination of professional shock and growing respect. The human team wasn't just solving a problem, they were fundamentally reimagining how quantum systems could interact and self-regulate. "This is impossible," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. Imani overheard the comment and walked over. "Nothing's impossible," she said softly. "We just haven't found the right perspective yet." The station's quantum core continued its remarkable transformation. What had been a critical failure threatening to disrupt communication across multiple star systems was now becoming a model of quantum stability. The humans had done more than repair a system, they had essentially taught it to heal itself. As the final computational models stabilized, the human team worked with a quiet, almost casual determination that continued to baffle their Zorlaxian counterparts. They weren't celebrating. They weren't even particularly surprised. This was simply how they approached problems, with creativity, adaptability, and an almost intuitive understanding of complex systems. Zwexner approached Marcus, his multiple appendages moving in a gesture that, for a Zorlaxian, was equivalent to a profound bow of respect. "We have much to learn," he said, the translation device rendering his words with a depth of humility that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. The critical breakthrough was more than just a technological solution. It was a fundamental shift in understanding, a demonstration that true innovation comes not from computational power, but from the ability to see problems from entirely new perspectives. The galaxy was about to change. And it would change in ways no one, least of all the Zorlaxians, could have anticipated. The aftermath of the quantum disruption solution reverberated far beyond the research station's metal walls. News of the human team's unprecedented breakthrough spread through the Zorlaxian communication networks like a quantum wave, challenging every preconceived notion about technological capability and scientific methodology. In the central research hub, the atmosphere had transformed completely. What had begun as a tense collaborative mission was now a scene of intense scientific dialogue. Zorlaxian researchers who had initially viewed the humans with condescension now listened with rapt attention, their multiple sensory appendages quivering with a mix of curiosity and professional excitement. Krelnax convened an emergency communication conference with the Zorlaxian Scientific Directorate. The holographic transmission showed a panel of senior researchers, their complex biological forms seeming to lean forward with an intensity that transcended physical limitations. "We are witnessing a fundamental paradigm shift," Krelnax reported, his translator rendering his words with clinical precision. "The human approach to quantum system management is revolutionary." Marcus Rodriguez stood nearby, seemingly unimpressed by the magnitude of their achievement. Imani Okeke was already sketching new theoretical models on a portable display, her mind already racing toward the next challenge. Raj Patel carefully dismantled and reorganized his diagnostic equipment, an almost meditative process that caught the attention of several Zorlaxian technicians. The scientific implications were staggering. The quantum stabilization technique developed by the human team wasn't just a one-time solution, it represented an entirely new approach to computational problem-solving. Where Zorlaxian science had always approached technological challenges as mathematical puzzles to be solved through pure computational power, the humans had demonstrated a more holistic, adaptive methodology. Zwexner approached Marcus, his movement more deferential than threatening. "Your team doesn't see technology as something to be conquered," he observed. "You see it as a living system that can be guided, not controlled." Marcus smiled, a gesture that seemed to communicate more than words. "Every system has its own language," he explained. "Our job is to listen, not just calculate." The research station's quantum core continued to demonstrate remarkable stability. What had been a critical failure threatening multiple star systems was now a testament to human ingenuity. The self-regulating systems developed by the human team showed adaptability that went beyond traditional computational models. Holographic displays throughout the station began showing comparative analyses. On one side, the complex, rigid mathematical models of Zorlaxian quantum management. On the other, the fluid, adaptive approach developed by the human team. The contrast was stark and undeniable. "We have been approaching technological challenges from the wrong perspective," one of the senior Zorlaxian researchers admitted during the conference. "We sought to control. They seek to understand." The implications extended far beyond this single research station. The quantum stabilization technique could revolutionize communication networks, computational systems, and technological infrastructure across multiple civilizations. And it had been developed not by a massive computational array, but by three humans who approached the problem with creativity, intuition, and a fundamental respect for the systems they were working with. Imani looked up from her theoretical models, catching Marcus's eye. They shared a moment of silent communication, the kind of unspoken understanding that had been key to their breakthrough. The Zorlaxian Scientific Directorate was about to recommend a complete re-evaluation of their technological development protocols. Humanity had just demonstrated that true innovation isn't about computational power, but about perspective, creativity, and the ability to see beyond established scientific boundaries. The galaxy was changing. And at the center of this transformation were three humans who had done nothing more than approach a problem with open minds and unconventional thinking. 5 solar cycles after the quantum disruption incident, the ripple effects of the human team's breakthrough had transformed galactic scientific understanding. What had once been a simple collaborative mission had become a watershed moment in interstellar technological development. The Zorlaxian Scientific Directorate had completely restructured its approach to problem-solving. Research academies across their civilization now taught courses on adaptive thinking, drawing directly from the methodologies demonstrated by Marcus Rodriguez, Imani Okeke, and Raj Patel. Marcus stood on the observation deck of the newly redesigned research station, now a monument to cross-species scientific collaboration. The quantum core that had once been a critical failure now pulsed with an almost living energy, a testament to their unconventional approach. "We didn't solve a problem," Imani had once said during a galactic conference. "We learned to communicate with technology instead of trying to dominate it." Her words had become a mantra for a new generation of scientists across multiple civilizations. Zwaxnar, who had become a close colleague and friend to the human team, approached Marcus. The once rigid Zorlaxian engineer now moved with a fluidity that suggested a fundamental shift in his own understanding of scientific methodology. The latest reports from the Galactic Research Consortium are remarkable, Zwaxnar reported, his translation device rendering his complex linguistic clicks into crisp human language. Your approach has influenced technological development across 17 different species. Marcus looked out at the vast expanse of space, a small smile playing on his lips. The quantum disruption had been more than just a technical challenge, it had been a demonstration of humanity's most profound capability, the ability to see beyond existing boundaries. The research station had become a symbol of something greater. Where previous galactic interactions had been defined by technological competition, this became a model of collaborative innovation. Species that had previously viewed each other with suspicion now sought to understand, rather than simply to conquer. Raj Patel joined them, holding a modified diagnostic tool that looked more like a work of art than a piece of scientific equipment. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," he said, echoing a sentiment that had become central to their approach. "It's about understanding the story behind the technology." Reports streamed in from across the galaxy. Communication networks that had been plagued by instability were now more robust than ever. Quantum computational systems were being reimagined, inspired by the human team's adaptive approach. What had once seemed like insurmountable technological barriers were now seen as opportunities for creative problem-solving. Krelnax, who had initially been the most skeptical of the human approach, now led a new interdisciplinary research initiative focused on adaptive technological development. The Zorlaxian scientific community had undergone a profound transformation. Humanity brought something we had forgotten, Zwaxnar reflected. The understanding that technology is not just a tool to be wielded, but a living system to be understood. As the research station continued its silent orbit, it stood as a testament to a simple yet profound truth: true innovation comes not from computational power, but from the ability to approach challenges with creativity, empathy, and an open mind. The quantum core pulsed softly, a heartbeat of technological possibility, a reminder that the most revolutionary solutions often come from the most unexpected places. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force or superior technology. They had transformed it through understanding.